at this right now. Here we go. Welcome, everyone. Very nice to see you on a Tuesday. Thank you so much for being a part of this. Our Powerhouse webinar series has been going incredible. We have 2 Powerhouse webinars a month now through City Moguls, and we're very excited, especially for today, which is all about engaging your online community with Swish Goswami. So we're very excited to have you here, Swish. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Danny Kagan. I am one of the co-founders of City Moguls, and I'm joined here by Victoria Marshman, my better half, and the other co-founder of City Moguls. She's very surprised that I said better half. For those of you who don't know too much about City Moguls, really briefly, we are a platform that educates, connects, and inspires great leaders and entrepreneurs. We are super thrilled that we are able to connect great minds just like you guys. So please use the chat on the side if you would like to talk about anything and not interrupt what is happening during the chat. You can also use the chat on the side if you want to connect with each other. You can put in your LinkedIn profile or any other social media platform of your choice and just like a brief hello so that we can all connect after this as well. We have a great group today. We're very excited, and not only do we have an incredible chat ahead with Swish and about his career thus far and some tangible tips on engaging an online community, but following this, you will also receive his social media guide exclusive to all of you here today. So stay tuned for that. Today's webinar is powered by CIBC. Very thrilled to have them as one of our partners. And just a little bit of housekeeping. Later this month, we do have another Powerhouse webinar with Dragon Den's Michelle Romano. So she will be chatting with us Friday, May 22nd at 2:30. And we also have a few spots left for cohort 3 for our Mogul Cruise initiative. That is a brand new peer-to-peer digital networking program that we have created and crafted and curated for entrepreneurs. So take a look at our website. You can register now. And I am going to flip it to Victoria, who can introduce Swish.
I'm excited to introduce Swish. He's a hard man to introduce. He's got a lot of accomplishments, so here I go. Swish is the CEO of Trufan, a social intelligence platform that helps brands of all sizes make smarter marketing decisions. His company has raised over 1.8 million to date, and his clients include Samsung, NBA, Netflix, NFL, PUMA, and a plethora of small to medium-sized businesses. Super average businesses, right? Trufan recently acquired as well the world's leading audience segmentation platform, SocialRank. So we're excited to learn more about that. As well, Swish has given 3 TEDx talks, secured a publishing deal with Kogan Page, and is an advisor and investor in popular social companies like Dunk Media and FaZe Clan, one of the most popular esports organizations in the world. He has a personal following of over 120,000 and enjoys speaking around the world under North America's prestigious Speaker Spotlight. For his entrepreneurial and philanthropic achievements, Swish was inducted to Plan Canada's Top 20 Under 20, recognized as Startup Canada's Young Entrepreneur of the Year, and was awarded the United Nations Outstanding Youth Leadership Award. Wow. Swish.
Just some small accomplishments at the ripe age of 23, right?
You're killing it. We're so excited to have you here.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for making the time to chat with me. I feel like just given how everyone's quarantined and we're all just focusing on our businesses or whatever it is we're doing, it can get really lonely. So instead of talking to myself this time, I'm appreciative to have all of you to talk to. And I think that'll be really fun.
Yeah, we're super excited to have you, Swish. We just connected recently through a mutual friend and a Mogul alumni, which is very cool. So it was great to chat with you and hear a little bit about your start. And I think that is a great place to start. If you can tell us a little bit about how you kind of got started. You have a really interesting kind of education path I won't give anything away.
Oh God, that ends tragically, but yeah.
Not tragically, it ends in like massive entrepreneurship, like successful. So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit how you kind of got into this and where it all kind of began.
Sure, yeah. So I was born and raised in Singapore. Singapore is my favorite country in the world. I would live there if I was allowed to, though. I'm not allowed to because of mandatory military service that comes into effect when you turn 18. And my brother, who's 4.5 years older than me, decided to cop out, and I had no say in the matter because I was 13 and no one cared about me. So anyways, still bitter about it. But at the same time, I moved to Canada in my teens. As a kid, like there was no like unusual childhood that I really had. I think the most unusual thing I might have done is with my dad, because he's an engineer. I built a hovercraft with him. So we took a Havakeli, which is like a remote controlled rechargeable helicopter. And it's the ones that you can fly around in your house. You just charge them for 15 minutes and then you can fly them again. And my dad taught me how to take the styrofoam base out and build a new rotor and motor that would allow basically for a helicopter to be rechargeable and remote controlled. So at the time, I was about 7, 8 years old. I thought this was the coolest thing in the world. All my friends did too. And the first money I ever really got independently came from that hovercraft, selling that for $200 and then going and buying a Nintendo DS, which I still have. My greatest purchase to date. All my purchases since have just been terrible. But that was a really, really cool moment. But I didn't look at that and think, oh my God, I'm an entrepreneur like Steve Jobs. Yes. I more thought, hey, this is good money that I can make on my own. I'd like to figure out more ways to do this. So I did start working a lot of interesting jobs throughout, just trying over the summer to make the most of any chance that I could have making money independently, because I wasn't going to be relying on my parents for any sort of money or I hated that my parents always would only give me allowances when I was acting good, which also really correlated with my grades. And I didn't care a lot about school coming from Singapore because school for me was fairly easy when I started in Calgary, just because of how advanced and accelerated the Asian education system is. But then it definitely did catch up with me. When I was in high school, I went to a private school called Weber Academy, and oh man, I got my ass kicked in first year, grade 10. I came in thinking, oh, I'm a 95% student, and I ended up with a 74 or 75 in math, and my mom was so angry. So I really focused in on school mainly, but I was also basically going away from school every 2 weeks to debate. So I debated quite a bit. I debated for Team Canada, eventually went to 2 world competitions, and that basically set me up on a path for either politics or law. And I knew that politics was something I wanted to do. I just didn't feel obviously confident to do it at a young age. I think it's more of a long-term goal of mine. I don't know when that's going to be. Definitely looking at the political climate right now, I don't know if I want to be even involved in it right now. It's a little too toxic for me. But at the same time, I knew that law could be something I wanted to do. So I decided to go into law. My brother, who, the running joke is that he does everything 10 times better than me. When I went into university, he was graduating law school, top of his class. He got a clerkship at the Supreme Court. And I was like, well, fuck, the standard is so high now. I'm going to go and just make myself look like an idiot. And so I did do that. I went into first year. I actually did decent. And then second year came around and I started getting distracted by just outside things that I wanted to do. One of them was building out this wearables company. And so it was basically a sensor that we'd built out for your foot, so that any athlete, any high performance athlete could gauge their biometrics all in real time. So how fast are they going? How likely are they to even sprain their leg or to get an injury? And so we went through, did that. We're able to license the product out to a company in New York. The person that actually helped me do that was Trevor Booker, who was an athlete for the Brooklyn Nets. He ran a VC. I worked for the VC over the summer and then decided to stay in New York for a year working on a company called Dunk. And so Dunk is currently a company I'm an advisor for. They basically have a big social media following across 21 accounts on Instagram, Snapchat, and Twitter. And I went through, worked with them for about a year, helping out with fundraising, business development, so getting a lot of brand deals and managing their community managers until starting Trufan, which is what I'm currently doing. So like you said, I feel like the whole journey was so crazy. The last 2.5 years have just been a blur to me. I don't actually remember who or how I was 2.5 years ago, but it's pretty neat to like look back and think like, you know, everything somehow did work out. And obviously I don't know what the next 4 or 5 years of my life will look like, but I'm happy that, you know, some of the decisions I made, like dropping out of college, those were things that I'm kind of proud about, actually, just for listening to my heart at any given moment.
Yeah, and it's super cool that you left and you just said, I'm just going to go work. Like, how did you even know to go work for a VC company in New York? Like, did you apply? Like, what was that process like?
Yeah, so Trevor had kind of become like a close mentor of mine while he was setting up. You know, he was actually one of the first athletes that tested our wearables out. He was the person that set up the deal with the company that eventually licensed out in New York. And then when I moved to New York, he literally told my parents, like, okay, he's under my guardian. Like, I will help him out. Whatever he needs, he can come and ask me. So he honestly just became like a brother to me, which was great. And I think it was when he was kind of getting into entrepreneurship, I think he realized, look, I'm playing for the Brooklyn Nets right now, but I probably only have like 2 or 3 years left in the league. What am I going to do after? Where I started really talking to him about, all right, what do you want to do? And a lot of what he wanted to do was real estate. I had no idea what that was all about. But a lot of what he also wanted to do was take some of his money that he'd made in the league and invest it in tech companies, specifically for young founders. And so one thing I knew that I had an advantage in is I could go to young founders and talk to them. I could go party with them. I could get to know them on a more personal level than a VC could ever do. So that was one of the advantages I sold to him, was that, hey, if you really want me to know these people as not only operators, but people, that's something I can definitely do. So it didn't mean that I was just going around partying all day. Like, that was not the job. Like, most of my job was literally going through like financial documents and going through pitch decks and writing up comments and preparing for meetings and doing just a lot of like secretarial work, if you will. But that also did teach me a lot about pitching and being on the other side of those pitches. That did help me as an entrepreneur later on.
I mean, like, partying is part of it, because I think like in so many different, like, this is a party to me. Like, this is a digital party, right? Like, this is how you network with great people, right? So it just shows you the power of genuine relationships, right? Like, that relationship for you took you on a whole path. So it's very cool. And congrats on that. So how did that lead you into Trufan? Because you were doing this wearable tech, you were doing some other things. Mm-hmm. What led you to Trufan? And for those of the people on this call that don't really know too much about it, tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So after working at the VC, my roommate, actually, Elliot, in New York, had started Dunk. So this big Instagram account that I was talking about, the main account is @DUNK on Instagram. And it was really like going through and working with him that kind of inspired the idea for Trufan. One of the people we were working with was Chris Paul's social media manager. I don't know how many basketball fans there are out there, but Chris Paul, obviously great player, currently playing right now for the Oklahoma City Thunder, previously played for the Rockets, and before that, the Clippers. So when he was going from the Clippers to the Rockets, his social media manager reached out to us and said, hey, do you guys have a tool that Chris could use to find his most engaged fans in Houston? Because we want to go to Houston and we want to make a noise. We want the entire city to know that he's here. And I didn't at the time, but I thought it was a pretty neat idea. Like, imagine if any artist, any celebrity, any brand for that matter, could just find who their top fans were and immediately reward them and tell them that I appreciate you. So that was a simple idea we started off with, which eventually became a full-time job. My co-founder for that project is actually my current roommate. We're literally a room away from each other. But he was at Stanford at the time. And then, you know, being the very positive influence on education that I am, I convinced him to take a leave of absence, which is what we told our moms, who I think still believe it, which is a bit sad. But yeah, we've been doing that now for 2.5 years. Started off in Vancouver, and then after we raised money, we came back to Toronto.
So what kind of, like, tell us how Trufan actually works, because I think this will start to get us into now your tips and how you actually started to tap into engaging and really like holding on to an online community and keeping them engaged. So
sure.
Yeah, sorry if that was convoluted, but I think
you're trying to get it. Yeah, I mean, the essence of Trufan is helping you engage with your grassroots community, right? So think about all your super fans or micro influencers that follow you on social media. We can help you find those people and engage with them. How we do that is through a platform. So the platform that we currently have is an amalgamation of the Trufan fan engagement software we were building out before we acquired SocialRank, and a lot of the audience search capabilities that SocialRank had. So to put that into like non-jargony words, what you're basically able to do is link your Instagram or Twitter account. You can see your entire following, and then you're able to filter that following based on, do I want to find only people that are in Toronto, that are interested in the Raptors, and that have the keyword Swish in their bio? I don't think any of those people exist. But at the same time, if they did, I would find those people, the 2, 3, 4, 5 people, and I can message them directly. Alternatively, if you don't want to even look at your own account, I think we're the only platform in the world now that has over 10 million audience reports. So you can basically go through and you can say, hey, my account isn't big enough, but I think LeBron James has a really big account. Or I think, who's a popular guy? My God, Chris Hemsworth. My God, I don't know why I thought about that. Jeez. I was just watching the Marvel movie, sorry. But Chris Hemsworth, and I want to go through his 30 million fans and find only people that are in Toronto that have the keyword vegan in their bio. You can go through and you can filter his audience out as well. So what I like about our platform is that even if you don't have a big following, you can derive value from it.
Yeah, and it's super interesting because like the idea of re-engaging the people who are coming back to you constantly is so profound, right? So
yep.
So how did, you've also created a really amazing personal brand. Like, how have you done that? And how does building your personal brand differentiate from your business?
Sure. So now it seems 5.5 years since I started on this road of building a personal brand, to quote. And why I say that is because I really started on LinkedIn like 5 years ago. I think I started my account. I started commenting on people's posts maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And then I really started posting actively 3 years ago. And I don't think there's a secret sauce behind it. Like, I don't like people that claim that you can do this within a month or 2 months. I actually think if you are able to do that, it's probably really terrible growth that's not sustainable over the long run. I think what I like about my community that I've built is that they're always there. That community is something that I can tap into if I have a question, if I need help, if I have a really interesting idea that I want to talk about, they're going to be there. It's not like they're only there for 1 month and then they're gone. So the only way, in my opinion, to grow a sustainable audience is by focusing on community. And that does mean engaging with your audience as much as possible. So for me, the early days of LinkedIn were literally getting on 5-minute calls with people that commented on my post. And the reason I wanted to do that is so I could build a direct relationship with people that were commenting on my post. So the next time they saw my post, they wouldn't just see me as a virtual avatar. They would actually be like, oh, I know Swish. Like we had a great chat. I know what he does. He knows what I do. And we have a more direct relationship. So I think the problem in today's age is that everyone's on this race to try to get followers and likes and comments, but no one realizes that there are tangible people involved here. And just like you wouldn't go into a bar and try to just say, here's my business card, here's my business card, here's my business card, here's my business card. People are doing that exact same mantra on social media. They're just trying to spam people with content as opposed to literally sitting down and saying, all right, what if I meet 5 or 10 people this week? So that's, I think, what you should do. Like, that's literally what I did. It led me to creating meetups. Meetups were a great way then to meet people on a more exponential level because 80, 100, 150 people would come out in one day. But that's how you go about creating that, right? I hosted about 25 meetups across the world, Mumbai, Singapore, Toronto, New York, wherever I was. I'd be like, hey, I'm hosting a LinkedIn meetup. And I remember the first one I hosted in New York, only 5 people showed up. And it was raining. We had to go into a Starbucks. We did it like Washington Square Park. Started raining, and I'm like, shit.
That's awesome, though.
But I still connect with those people. I still know who those people are. And it's so cool because once you do something like that, you kind of build a really great relationship with someone that they normally don't forget. So I know that's not the most glamorous answer. I know like the algorithm and talking about that would be 10 times sexier, but the long and hard truth is that you do have to spend time really trying to meet people and not just trying to post content.
Yeah, and it sounds like it's kind of also a marriage of like the bots, the automation, and like something like having some sort of platform like Trufan, and also like the relationship building, right? Like it's it's some sort of happy marriage there, right?
Yep, it's a mix. I mean, I always tell people that the 3 things you need are content, community, and collaboration, right? And content stems from having anything that's informative. So do you have a competitive advantage in terms of what you know or what you do? Write that down. Like I know some things, but I also know I don't know most things, right? Like I don't know a lot about Bitcoin, for example. So I wouldn't go on stage ever and answer a question about Bitcoin without laughing. or without just saying, I'm an idiot, I don't know this, sorry. And the same thing goes for social media. I would never share a post about Bitcoin unless I was asking questions to people. But what do I know? I know about fundraising. I know about the early stages of building a company. I know a little bit about social media. I know quite a bit about mental health. Being a college student, I was part of a few clubs around mental health. And so I will talk about those topics and I will share my opinion about them. But again, inviting people to chime in. That's number one, informative posts. Number two is inspirational content. And that's where I think interviewing people was something that really helped me, especially with business. I think that the number one way to meet people or to network with people, especially influential, high net worth people, is by interviewing them. 99% of people in the world, I think, love talking about themselves. I am exhibit A. And I think that if you go and you play to that, and instead of asking people for coffee, which is taking time away from them, you ask them for an interview, which is literally giving them value up front, a lot of people are more likely to respond and at least say yes. So that's number two, is sharing other people's stories, which I think can be very inspiring. You know, go through and find the 5, 10, 15 people around you. They don't have to be famous. They don't have to be super rich. But if they have an incredible story, put that into a paragraph or two and share it. Because that's a great way, again, to go about collaborating with other people as well, where they're going to then comment, their audience will see your post, your audience will see them, and it's a simple cross-pollination there. And the third and final thing to do is personal anecdotes. And personal anecdotes are things that I think put me a bit more on the map. One of the early things I think I did when I was like at 20 or 22,000 followers is I did a campaign with 3 other people that loved posting content on LinkedIn. And we called it the Let's Get Honest campaign. We thought that LinkedIn was just filled with people asking for jobs or giving jobs away. It was too professional. And it's not to say, like, I think obviously there's a difference between LinkedIn and Facebook. I remember early on, some of my comments used to be like, this is not Facebook. And I'd be like, God damn it. I think there is a difference between the two. But that being said, I do think that a big part of our lives is made up of work. Like 80% of our week is made up of work. And work is not just purely professional. There are personal feelings that are associated with work. There are times when you feel burnt out. There are times when you feel not valued. There are times that you feel extremely happy and extremely empowered and ready to take on the world. And you should be able to talk about that. And so I think LinkedIn is a great platform to talk about getting fired, being passed on for a promotion, but doing that obviously in a polite and an honest way where people can resonate with that, relate with you, and think of you not just as an individual that is posting a lot of informative content in BBC articles, but you're actually a human being that also is going through very similar struggles or victories like they are. So that's the third thing, is personal anecdotes. For me, that was speaking to college students. I talked a lot about procrastination, talked a lot about not knowing what I wanted to do with my life, not really knowing what my passion was, having to eat ramen a bunch, having a terrible work-life balance, right? Like all of these things that I knew college students could resonate with, going for job interviews, I would talk about those things in terms of what my experience with that was. And that was a great way to just show people that I can relate to you as well, that I'm not just a machine that keeps churning out article upon article upon article.
I wanted to jump in here, Swish, because we have a program right now called Mogul Cruise where we're talking with entrepreneurs, and it's a very safe space. And one of the biggest things that comes up with a lot of entrepreneurs is they're paralyzed, like they're so fearful to post on their personal brands. Like it's a real fearful thing for a lot of people. I mean, I think you've given some great tips on what type of content you can do, but do you have any other suggestions on how people can overcome that fear of posting authentically as themselves?
Sure. I think that, look, there's so many more things to fear in life. Honestly, I really do believe that. Like, and this is one thing, I have a lisp, for example, like I have a hard time saying my S's properly, which really sucks because my full name is Swarochish. That has like 8 S's in it, I think. But I remember in grade 7, when I was joining debate, I was really terrified. I was like, I can't say my R's properly. I can't say my S's properly. Like, am I actually going to debate well? And I remember in grade 9, a parent judge, I actually knew whose parent that was. He was a parent of one of my good friends, Matthias. He was like, Swish, man, you're an excellent debater. I cannot wait until you get your retainer out. And I'm just like, oh, like I don't have a retainer. But and I did it. And looking back, it was the best decision I ever did, signing up for debate class every Thursday, 5 p.m. Like that changed my whole life. Like it's, and so the same thing with LinkedIn. Like I have to take a bit of hate sometimes too. right? Like I just genuinely don't think you can go through life with everyone liking you. And I've realized that from looking at my mom, who I think is an angel of a human being that's had, run-ins with people that don't like her that much. And I can't get why, because I think she's amazing, but it happens. Like, people are always looking for an excuse to hate on other people. And I'm not going to change the world by trying to get people to not do that, but I could potentially change the world by sharing my insights and continuing to follow my heart and do things that I genuinely want to do. So my advice to you is, if you're scared about posting, the first thing you should do is, don't think you have to open up your entire book to people, right? You don't have to share your entire life if you don't want to. I'm not trying to say that you should, but sharing other people's content, commenting, like taking and being a part of the community, that's not something people should hate on you for. Like, if you're sharing someone else's inspiring story and people are like, what the fuck are you doing? I mean, you should reassess the people that you have in your life, or the people that you're giving free space in your head for. So that's probably the most simple way of putting it. I still deal with it sometimes. Like, sometimes I see comments, and it is what it is. Like, it does get to you a little bit, but at the end of the day, you have to think that, do they have any valid criticism here? If not, move on. Like, it's the same thing with any other part of your life. Like, what are you told when a hater, or whoever you want to call it, comes into your life? You don't give them that much attention or time unless you think they have something valid to say, which, if they do, that criticism is something you should try to take.
Yeah, and that's super helpful. Like, I think that a lot of people are always fearful, like Victoria said, to kind of put themselves out there and feel authentic with what they're putting out there. So I think that's super helpful. And I just want to go back for 1 second. And before I do, please feel free to put all of your questions and comments into the chat, guys. And again, put your LinkedIn on there, or any other social channel for yourself, so we can all connect with each other. We love connecting, clearly. And I'm going to get to Arvin and Bruce's question in 1 second, but I wanted to go back for a second, Swish, and talk about, once you've built that community, right? Like, even if it's a small community, how do you convert those fans of yours, the people who keep coming back to you? How do you make them actual advocates of your brand? And what does that really mean?
Mm-hmm. And Bruce, I am sorry for speaking quickly. My mom does tell me a lot that I do that, so my bad. I'll slow down a little bit. My mind just keeps racing. I'm just like, oh my God, I need to get through everything. Advocacy. So in my opinion, there are a number of stages, especially when you're thinking about a customer, for example. There are a number of stages that a customer will go through. They'll go from someone that's never seen your brand to someone that gets some sort of content, whether it's a video, whether it's a post about your product, your service, a testimonial, whatever it is, they will become knowledgeable about your brand. The point from being knowledgeable to converting the customer is something that I think there's a lot of literature written about this, right? How do you go about targeting them again and again and again? How do you go about creating a relationship with them? How do you go about meeting them or getting in front of them? These are all things that I think the world has tried to solve, helping businesses reach customers. I think that not a lot of literature has been put into how do you actually retain these people? And that's been more important than ever before. There's a principle called the Pareto principle. 80% of a company's annual revenue normally comes from 20% of their existing customers. And that, I think, really goes to show the power of building an engaged audience that you can constantly go back to. So the question is, how do you do that? I think number one is to know where your customers are, right? Like, not only in terms of location, but who are they and where are they talking, right? Are they talking about your brand or your industry or your category on Twitter, on Instagram, on LinkedIn? Where is it, right? And so I do think that investing a bit of time into, let's take a look at 10 of our customers and try to find them and see where exactly they are, what are they talking about, what resonates with them. And I think the best thing you could possibly do then is to start building a community around the topics that your community cares a lot about. So even if you're like a gym or a fitness studio in Toronto, if you realize that a big part of your community loves volunteering or loves going and talking about mental health, it could be neat throwing a Zoom event around mental health. It could be neat going and having a day where you invite a bunch of your gym fanatics, your fitness fanatics, to come out and volunteer with you. So I don't think you have to necessarily do things down your category. I think you're trying to find more touch points to your audience that allow them to connect with you in a deeper way. That's not transactional whatsoever. That's the number one thing I think you have actually as an advantage to being a small business owner. is I think the bigger brands have a very hard time doing this. Bureaucracy is a huge issue for them. Moving quickly is a huge issue for them. But for a smaller company, you have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 people, you have the ability literally to call up your customers every day if you wanted to and talk to them on a one-on-one basis. If you don't want to do that because you feel like it's spammy, you have the ability to throw a monthly event and invite each one of them out to hear their problems, hear what they're going through, right? And again, going back to what I talked about for LinkedIn, these aren't sexy ideas. These are things people overlook because they're looking for the shortcut route to continuing to build up an audience or continuing to build up a customer base. But truly, I think in today's world where we're inundated with so many ads, with so many people trying to get our attention, the only way to keep people's attention is by having a one-to-one relationship with them. And so that's where I do believe that tools like ours, like Trufan, there's a bunch of other tools in our space as well, can be very helpful to pinpoint the very people that you need to start building a relationship with.
Yeah, and that's also helpful. And I have like so many more questions as you're talking, but I'm going to get to some of the questions in the chat. And I'm sure some people are already starting, the wheels are turning now. I always find at the 30-minute mark, we always start getting really juicy. So here we go. So Arvin was asking about your comment earlier, Swish. He was saying that he's a bit confused about the idea of asking people for an interview rather than a coffee meetup. How would you answer that, what you are interviewing the person for?
Yeah, I mean, so when you ask someone for an interview, you should probably do the interview. I'm not saying like, you know, just claim to say, hey, I want to interview you. And then like, you're like, aha, got you. So ideally my goal would be like start some sort of podcast or start a written series on LinkedIn or Medium. Like, and it doesn't have to be glamorous. Like the amount of people now that have podcast mics and they're doing all this fancy stuff that I have no clue what they're doing. Like when I started a podcast in first year, which I ran it for about 15, 16 episodes, I was recording on GarageBand and exporting to SoundCloud. Like I just genuinely don't know who was doing that. Who exports podcasts to SoundCloud? So it was literally my podcast and then a bunch of mixtapes. So that was number one. It was very unglamorous. But then when I started writing a lot, I wrote on LinkedIn and I wrote on Medium. So what I did is I had a bunch of questions, maybe 5, 6, 7 questions that I wanted to ask my guest. If I met up with it in person, I would talk to them. I would ask the 6, 7 questions. But here's the thing. The 6, 7 questions will likely not take up your entire meeting. So the reason why you want to interview people is because you'll write a nice article about them. You'll share it with your community. They'll be happy. You'll be happy. But you're also going to have a chance now to talk to them a little bit about what you do and what your background is. And you can intertwine that also in the questions that you're asking. So I think the best thing to do is think about what industry you're interested in. What industry am I interested in meeting people in? And then cultivate a podcast or a written series around that. And especially in Canada, I feel like people here don't have an ego as much as American entrepreneurs, for example, do. So it's fairly easy, I think, to reach out to people on LinkedIn if you have a genuine intention of wanting to learn from them and get their story on paper and share it. I think it's an easier thing to do being in Canada to reach people that you think are high net worth, influential, or just have a great story that you want to be able to get out to the world.
And we have a very, we have an international group here. We have someone joining us from Monterrey, Mexico, and we have someone in Winnipeg, which is not international, but you are definitely far away and it's probably snowing there. So we apologize, Michelle. But Swish, I'm gonna ask you another question from someone from our group today, from Benjamin, because these are all of the things we're talking about, very entrepreneurship focused, which of course is really helpful for a lot. But what about more for the traditional businesses, IB, consulting? You know, Benjamin saying, I find these industries are extremely reluctant to use these sorts of posts and often ridicule interns and entry-level employees who do this. So what are your comments about that? And that's a really good question, by the way. I'd love to hear your answer.
It's a good question, but I mean, LinkedIn is not built for entrepreneurs. LinkedIn was built for people in consulting. Like it was literally built for people in finance, right? I mean, why do I care about seeing someone's whole resume when I click their profile? Like if it was up to entrepreneurs, we'd have to just put like 3 or 4 projects we were working on and that's it. But you know, for me, when I show my profile on LinkedIn, I have to put everything. I have to put places I've worked at, my experience, documents that might be able to supplement that. I have to share my educational history, which is obviously incomplete. And then I also have to share a bunch of other things. So I actually do think that a lot of these platforms and what I'm talking about can very much work with consulting or can very much work with investment banking. The question is, how do you do it? So do I think that you should go out and, you know, be an influencer, quote unquote, which I don't like that word too much, but do I think that you should start posting and sharing, you know, oh my God, investment banking, I'm working so many hours, or like my job's so great because of X, or, you know, I hate this person at my work? No. What I am sharing though is there could be a great way, I think, to start owning a particular space within investment banking or within consulting. And maybe that space would be, how do you get more young talent into consulting, or how to become a consultant? Like, that is the number one question I think college students ask themselves when they're in third or fourth years. How do I get into McKinsey? How do I get into Bain? How do I get into Deloitte? What is monitored Deloitte? What are all of these things that are very jargony when you're in the world, but outside looking in is a bit intimidating? Can I go and simplify that down for people? Can I interview other consultants? Can I interview other investment bankers that can share a bit of spotlight into what does their day-to-day life actually look like? Is it what I see on TV? Is it what I see on Netflix, right? So these are the things I'm talking about that I think are very, very relevant for traditional industries. Like, if you're a lawyer today, I genuinely think sharing even a little bit about your day-to-day life as a lawyer could be very impactful to some people. Because right now, if you want to be a lawyer and you look into popular media and watch The Good Wife or Suits, you get a terrible picture of what being a lawyer is. It's not true at all. It's very glamorized, but it doesn't talk about the nuances which you can provide through posts or videos or by interviewing people.
Thanks for that, Swish. We want to open up questions. If you guys want to come on camera and ask a question directly to Swish, you can just raise your hand and we'll let you ask him a question directly. Anyone? Bruce came off. Oh, Natalie wants to ask a question. Okay, go unmute yourself. And then Bruce.
Hi, Swish. Thank you so much. This is such valuable information. And I really value your advice about actually spending the time to connect with people. But on the other side of that coin, you know, if you aren't somebody who necessarily has a lot of time to give, what would be your most valuable go-to in terms of trying to build an audience by doing not that much, but doing what you can?
Sure. So I think there's 3 points there. Number one is, if you don't have time to get on a 5 or 10 or 15-minute call with someone, I would probably reassess your calendar a little bit. Like, I just would say that out of pure honesty, because I genuinely do think that people should be able to make at least 30 minutes throughout the week to talk to people. It's just a personal thing also, like beyond just trying to grow on LinkedIn, like networking with people, even when you're in a full-time job, I think is important. So trying to make some time would be great. But I think B, you always have the luxury of commenting, and you always have the luxury of commenting back to people. So whether it's before going to bed or while you're in an Uber, if we were allowed to go outside right now, you know, Ubers were actually a great time for me to go through LinkedIn. Like, when I was in an Uber to a meeting or Uber to work, I would go through my comments and I would try to reply to as many people, just so people knew that I was paying attention to them and that the conversation wasn't a one-way street. That's number 2. And then I think number 3 is, if you're looking for kind of a tactical tip, if you have LinkedIn Premium, which I know is a lot cheaper now than it was before. When I started on LinkedIn, it was like $80 or something like that. Now I think it's 38, 39, 40, I don't know. LinkedIn Premium is awesome because you can actually take a look at the people that have viewed your profile in the last 90 days. So these are people pretty much that have come onto your profile, they have seen your profile, but they haven't clicked the connect button. So it's pretty neat what you can do with that. Like, if you find interesting people that are coming onto your profile that you want to chat with, or you just want to connect with, shoot them a note, send them a message, or connect with them, because these are people that could be really cool to collaborate with, talk to, work with, or just have within your network on LinkedIn. So I actually think that's a great feature. Like, imagine that for websites. Imagine that, like, if I could have a running list of everyone hitting my website, but then in single button, I can connect with them. That's what you can do through LinkedIn Premium by that one feature. So that could be something you look into as well.
Yeah, great question, Natalie. Thank you. Okay, so we have a couple. So we're gonna shoot it off to Bruce. I think had the next question, and then we have Nicholas who asked a question on the side here, and then yeah, we'll go from there. So Bruce, we'll open up the floor to you.
Oh, thank you very much. Now my phone's stable. Can you hear me?
We can
A
hear
little
you.
bit.
You're frozen, but we can hear you.
Sorry for that. I updated 15 megabytes per second. You better do better. Just a question for your blogs. How do you uncover your blind spots?
Bruce, we're gonna give you a second because your connection is a little wonky. If you wanna throw your question onto the chat, we will come back to that in just a moment. I'm gonna let Nicholas ask his question if that is all right. Nicholas, if you wanna unmute yourself, you're more than welcome to ask your question.
Yeah, of course. Hi, everyone. Thank you. It's amazing to be here. I've been a big fan of Swish for a while. So it's a pleasure to be here again. So my question would be, did you get any sort of funding before actually building Trufan, or only after you had some sort of MVP? Or what was the process like for you? Because I'm starting actually a digital product business with a friend. So I just wanted to know a little bit about your process.
Sure. Nice to meet you, Nicholas. So we got funding very early on. I actually think in retrospect, we probably should have waited a bit longer before we tried to secure our first round. We got funding pre-product. So it was just an idea. I actually had the idea December 2017. In January 2017, like January 4th or 5th, we got our first investor on board, who's actually currently our CMO now. So she put in a check, and then over the next like 5-6 months, we had individual angel investors that all wrote a check. So by August, I think we had about 22 or 23 angels that had put in anywhere between 10 to 25,000. I think the process though, in an ideal world, what normally should happen is you should take your idea, you should plan it out for maybe 1 to 2 weeks, look up as much as you can around how big your market size is, what exactly your idea is, how it's different from people, the competitive advantage you might have. The reason I say don't plan for too long is that idea is likely going to be garbage in 2 years. And what I mean by that is I think almost every single idea that I have seen, I have had, or my mentors, for example, have had, they never end off the same way that they start. You know, there's always constant evolution, constant iteration happening. So I think what you should probably try to do is try to get customer feedback from that. So take your idea and go to very honest people in your life and ask them, do you like this idea? What are some of the flaws behind it? Would you utilize it? If you are able to build an MVP of some sort, like a minimum viable product, you should do that. For me, I was like a humanities student, and I was able to still figure out InVision, which is a great way to build a non-functional wireframe of your product. If you're trying to build an app and you don't want it to be functional yet, but you just want to visualize what the app will look like and allow people to click through it, you can do that on InVision quite easily. And so taking that InVision template or taking your idea and going and talking to people and getting customer feedback, I think is the best thing you could possibly do, because it's going to give you the ability now to go back, think about whether you want to pursue that idea, think about what you need to change in order to make that idea more viable. And then hopefully the first customers that you bring on are the very people that gave you feedback. So the very people that gave you honest feedback, that told you to implement certain things, are the people you go back to after. And you ask them, would you be down to come on a pilot for $25, $250, $1,000 a month, whatever it is that you think you'd like to price it as. And once you get 2-3 pilots, I think that's kind of the time to fundraise if you want to. I do think that bootstrapping is something, I've never done it, but I have a big admiration for people that are able to do it.
Awesome, thank you. I just have a follow-on question, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course, go for it.
It's basically, how do you kind of convince that person to kind of explain the idea at first, and so that you don't sound kind of like a sales representative or just trying to sell another product to them, especially in this environment with coronavirus, in which everyone's essentially cutting budgets, cutting their workforce. So how would you go about that?
I mean, it's by having a repo with them, right? You know, I think it's a very hard thing to do if you don't know the person. Like if I just randomly DM someone, or if I randomly approach someone after not talking to them for 3 years and told them, hey, I have this idea that I want to talk to you about, it can come off very salesy, like you're saying. But if I'm talking to someone and I've kept them in my back pocket for a while, you know, I've networked with them before, I've done something for them, they've done something for me, we've just followed up with each other throughout, it comes off more just honest feedback that you're looking for. So for me, whether it was getting that feedback or raising money, I mainly did that off the network that I built. Like, one of the people that came on board as an advisor and connected me to a lot of investors was Michael Hyatt, who I know obviously gave an incredible webinar recently. He was someone that I met by interviewing. Like I walked with him down Bay Street, asked him a bunch of questions, wrote an article. He loved the article, stayed in touch with him. And now literally he's like one of the most direct influences to my life from a business perspective, especially, where he constantly advises us, he helps us out. But that sort of relationship was built by networking with him in a way that wasn't trying to come off as I'm trying to take advantage of you or use you or take time away from you. It was more like, I just want to learn from you. And thankfully we clicked, and that was how we were able to continue our relationship. But that's, I think, what you need to also focus on. I don't know how to fundraise without networking. Like, I don't know how to just go up into a pitch and say, here's my presentation, I hope you invest in me. Like the way that we've gotten investors on board, every single one is by personal relationships.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and just to go off of that, like Nicholas and Swish, like, isn't it just also like about believing in what you're doing? Like when you believe in your product or you believe in your service, it doesn't feel like you're ever selling, right? You're just talking about what you do.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I 100%, I think it's a mix between both. I think that belief though, that conviction is obviously something that will come off. Like if you're doing this just for money, it will come off that way. But if you're actually doing this because you have a vested interest in the problem that you're trying to solve, i.e. that problem affects you, it affects your family members, it affects your friends, it affects the community that you deeply care about, that passion will come across as well, like Danny's saying, 100%.
Yeah, 100%. I love this raising hand function. So Roy just used that. I'm going to do you next. That's awesome. And just before that, I know that Bruce had the question, and we have an awesome chat going now. So I'm just like lost in it. He said, how do you uncover your blind spots?
I was looking at that. I don't actually know what you mean by blind spots, Bruce. Can you clarify that? I find that interesting.
Well, everybody does things, and it could be like a mistake or a habit. And everybody has these things that if they could see it, they would change it, but they can't see it. So they have to use some of their methodology to make it known to them. So that's why it's called a blind spot, because you can't see it. And it can be your undoing. So how do you make sure that you're not repeating mistakes? I think you answered the last question, but go ahead.
Yeah, sure. I think two things. One is I have very honest people in my life and like my inner circle. My mom does not take bullshit from me. Like anytime I'm doing something that she thinks is wrong and I think is right, she will call me out for it. Same with my close friends from college or my brother. They're very hard on me, but I like that. Like they're trying to put me to a certain standard that I think is nice and is great. The second thing is I do also think that I write a lot. Like I have about 3,000 notes I feel in my phone because I write pretty much a lot of my thoughts, whether it's things that I'm unhappy with, things that I'm happy with, or things that I need to make sure I don't do again. So I try to remind myself and try to keep thoughts flowing in my head so that especially if I made a really big mistake, I remember that moment because I'm able to go back to it. And I'm able to, it's kind of my form, I guess, of journaling. But I feel like once you write things down, they kind of get ingrained a lot more in your mind. Thank you.
That was helpful, Bruce.
Thank you.
I'm going to go to Roy, and then I thought there was someone else. Yas, perfect. So I'm going to do Roy and then Yasmin.
Thanks, Danny, and thanks, Swish, for coming on and providing all this great information. My question is a two-parter. The first one is, I built a brand for just over a year now, and we have a lot of followers, but right now I'm struggling with engagement. So in terms of posting, it's been consistent and all that. I haven't really switched the game plan. Do you have any tips on how I can continue to engage my following?
Sure. There's a few things. I think one is go back to your content strategy probably and reassess it. Like, is the content that you're posting even worthwhile anymore? Was it something that worked a year ago? I think sometimes people get attached to a certain style or a certain flow of posting content that they might need to change now. Maybe your audience is into different things. Maybe your audience isn't as interested in quotes with beautiful headshots now. Maybe they're interested in videos and things that are a bit more interactive. I'd also try to go live as much as possible. I think especially during quarantine, which we're likely going to have maybe 3-4 more. I'm going to be quarantined till September. Like, I'm not taking any chances. I'm staying at home. Like, I think a lot of us are going to have it and be at home. And a lot of what we're doing is going on our phones and periodically checking on social media. So going live would be something I'd do as well. And then find some of the biggest pages in your industry and start commenting. I think commenting is so undervalued. Like, people talk a lot about posting content, but I think the number one way also on Instagram, especially, to drive traffic to your page is by commenting. And that doesn't mean commenting spam, because you're likely not going to go far with that. But find people like the 5, 10, 15 pages or influential people in your industry. They don't, by the way, need to have millions of followers. They could have 50,000, 100,000, 200,000, whatever it is, and start commenting something of value, 2-3 sentences that directly allow you to show your expertise or your knowledge around that particular topic. And that will bring up people to your page. That will, like, people are going to check the comments. And if it's a well-timed comment that does well, people will check your profile out. And it's a great way for getting people onto your page as well. So those are kind of the 3 tips there. There's no science. I think everyone is seeing engagement fall dramatically. But the people, by the way, who are seeing engagement rise are people that are changing up their content strategy altogether. Like, they're going into new platforms. I think TikTok, for example, I don't think it's for everyone. I'm not on TikTok, for example, but if your business does cater to that market, and by the way, by that market, I mean looking where your customers are your customers on it, then I would do it, because there's a lot of untapped potential, I feel, with platforms like that are still figuring out their algorithm and giving a great chance to new creators to explode.
That's a perfect segue into my next question, because it was about TikTok. So
I
think the majority of my market is slowly kind of transforming over there. What I want to know is, do you think the entire marketing, network shift, do you think it'll shift from Instagram over to TikTok?
I really hope not. But it could, because I think a lot of people have the misnomer that TikTok is for young kids. It's not. Like, you could be anyone and you could find your community on TikTok. There's a lot of content just beyond 12-year-old and 13-year-old boys and girls dancing. So I do think that TikTok is obviously big. The question is, I think a lot of apps have this like really instant rise. And a lot of people don't know this. Like, I was an early user of Musical.ly, and that was the I guess the pre-TikTok world, right? Like, it was what TikTok eventually became was Musical.ly. So Musical.ly was started like 4 or 5 years ago, and it didn't resonate with people. People didn't like it. There was a great instant spike, and then there was a decline in usage. And I'm seeing a very similar spike, I feel, with TikTok. The question is, will it sustain itself? And maybe, but I just don't think Instagram is going away. Like, I just genuinely feel like with the features Instagram has built out, that TikTok, I don't think can ever get into, with how, like, literally, like, how beautiful Instagram is as a platform to use. It's going to be very hard to displace Instagram. But maybe Twitter will die, because people are just going to start posting on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube. Like, I don't think there can be that many social media platforms that do well at the same time.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Roy, for your question. I'm going to pass it off to Yasmin and then to Linda Stamko.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. Hi, Swish.
Hello.
First off, congrats on all the success. You are super inspiring, and thanks for sharing so much valuable information today. I totally believe there is a power in sharing, and there's a garbage truck in my backyard. So if you hear something in the background, I'm sorry.
No worries.
And thank you so much for sharing so much great insight. I think a lot of us are acting on many levels on a lot of things that you've said, and it's just such a great reminder to start acting on some of the things that we've kind of swept under the carpet and kind of bring everything to fruition. But just want to take it back. I'm really interested in your platform, Trufan, and really interested in sort of exploring it, for our business, for our clients' businesses. And I'm wondering if you would compare yourself to other platforms, which platforms would you compare yourselves to, like your competitors? And what are some of the advantages of using Trufan over other platforms?
Sure, that's a great question. So we play in a space called audience analytics. A lot of times people confuse us with like a Hootsuite or a Buffer. We can actually work really well with those platforms, because social media analytics is broken up into publishing and audience analytics. Publishing is when to post, how to post, scheduling posts. That's what Hootsuite, Buffer, Sprout Social, all of them do. Audience analytics, where we play in, has big players like Sprinkler, which is a $1 billion company. Crimson Hexagon, which was recently bought out by Brandwatch, which is, I think, close to being a $1 billion company if it's not already. And then other companies like Tradable Bits. I think the competitive advantage we have is threefold. Number one is price. So Sprinkler starts off at about $7,000 a month for the functionality that you can get on our platform. We start off at $24 a month, dramatically cheaper and more affordable than they are. We're also going to be putting out a free plan this Friday, which is pretty exciting. So any person can come on, and you can only look at the Twitter side of our platform. You can't take a look at the Instagram side, but you can get the core functionality of the platform just coming on for free. Number two is how easy the platform is to use. We've been told this multiple times that, like, Crimson Hexagon, for example, my co-founder went to Stanford comp sci engineering. He couldn't figure out Crimson Hexagon for a solid week. It uses Boolean search terms. It uses things that are incredibly complex, and you need a data scientist, I feel, to use tools like that. Our platform was built for marketeers. It was built for the average small business owner that might not have a lot of time, money, or followers, and they want a quick and easy way to come onto the platform, spend about 15, 20, 30 minutes on it, and derive some value, whether it's messaging a number of people, understanding more about their audience, and being able to make their content strategy often. And the third and final thing, beyond affordability, beyond how easy the platform is to use, is I think how sophisticated our platform is. Despite being very easy to use, I think you're not going to find a platform in the world that has over 10 million audience reports saved on the platform, and also has over 2 billion social profiles that you can filter. So we have a feature called Cerebro. I'm a big X-Men fan. So Professor X wears like the helmet Cerebro to find mutants and humans. So we built out a feature where you can actually take a look at Instagram or Twitter. You can see over 1 billion profiles on each, and you can filter that audience. So you could find all the people out of 1 billion profiles that have the word Swish in their bio. There could be 100, they could be 20,000, but in a matter of seconds, you're able to find those people.
Awesome. Thanks, Yaz, for your question.
Thank you.
And Swish, you just like won my heart with Cerebro. Big X-Men fan over here. I see people with hands raised, so I am just going to go to Raj.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Raj,
hey, Swish, what's going on?
How you doing? I haven't seen you in ages.
I know. It's been a while. Thanks so much for doing this.
For context, Raj and I went on a road trip to New York about 3 years ago, I think.
Yeah, it was phenomenal. Really short, but we got a lot in there.
Yeah.
So I think you and Danny had touched on this a little bit before, but just, I had a couple of questions about the whole personal and business branding. Right now, my business is only me. So I'm sort of reluctant sometimes to post personal content on my business page and then post business content on my personal page, just because I don't know, maybe I'm thinking I don't want people to know it's so small. I don't know what my reservations are, but I was wondering, in terms of trying to engage people and make them feel connected to me, should I be focusing more on putting out content on one versus the other? Like, what's more important to build out?
Yeah, so great question there. I think number one, the whole like business versus a personal page, I actually don't think there's a difference anymore between the two. Like, if you take a look at it, almost every big brand in America now is trying to come off to their customer base as an influencer. They're trying to come off as an individual, which is why on Wendy's or Burger King, like their Twitter account, they don't talk like a brand. They talk as if they're like your grandmother that's like criticizing you or making fun of you or not understanding memes properly, right? So
yeah.
I think that's the coolest thing you can do, actually, is I think you can come off as personable as a business now more than ever, especially during the times that we live in. Like, imagine giving a COVID response email, like, we believe that our value should blank, blank, blank. Like, instead of just saying, like, I know that this is a tough time for a lot of you, and speaking very directly to your audience as if you were a person, right? So that's number one. Number two is, I think the best thing is you can play around with it. Like, you don't have tens of hundreds of millions of followers yet. So why not just try and see if that content works, right? Like, if that content works of being more personal, showing the day in the life of building your business, or kind of mixing the two together by doing a spotlight on each employee that you have. We do this every Friday. We do an employee takeover where either an intern or an employee will take over our Instagram story and we'll talk about their day working at Trufan, right? And we think that's a great thing, not only for the company, but in order to attract future hires so that they see that, hey, this is what Trufan's like. This is what working at Trufan, even remotely, feels like. So I think number 2, that's really important. Number 3, in terms of which platforms to be on, goes back to the answer of like knowing where your customers are. If they're on Instagram and Twitter, you should be on both. I don't see this whole like, let's focus in on only one channel. I think focusing your marketing spend on one channel could be a better strategy, like not going through and taking, you know, 5K in marketing spend and putting 1K here, 1K there, 1K there, like maybe investing that in 1 or 2 channels and seeing what works and then going back and iterating could be a strategy. But in terms of sharing content and having a social presence, I genuinely think you should be at every place your customers at, right? And again, that will grow as your customers grow, as you get more people coming on board. You're gonna have to keep reassessing where they are and how do you reach them.
Awesome, thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, great question, Raj. And I love that you touched on like focusing where to focus your marketing spend, Swish. That's super helpful, just to know that you don't need to spread it out across 5 different platforms is super, super interesting. But thank you. I'm gonna hand it off to Linda, and then Ben, you're on deck.
Hi, thank you for being here. It's been, you're so inspiring, and you're full of knowledge. I'm going to ask you a couple questions. I have built an app, and it was hard enough to launch it and forget now in the middle of COVID. So Apple approved my app. I'm an app that connects personal stylists with customers to shop together. So I've been on Instagram because I feel like, you know, that's where I need to be, but I'm an app. So I'm wondering, do you have any publications, maybe app directories that maybe I should be maybe publishing on there rather than just Instagram, and for the fashion aspect of it?
Sure. Yeah. So firstly, congrats on launching an app during this time. That's amazing. And that's kudos to your determination and will. I know it's super tough to even get access to anything right now, let alone build an app and put it up on the App Store. I don't have a lot of personal experience with apps, so I'm just going to preface it by saying I don't have a lot of knowledge in this space. But that being said, if I had an app around personal stylists, I think the number one thing I would do is to actually try to focus on building an Instagram following. Like I actually do find that fashion, style, makeup is probably the number one category on Instagram. And it's a fairly easy category to do well in, as long as you're consistently posting, not just like download the app, but like tips, like, or sharing what other people that are influential are wearing. So if you can become a page, like, there are a lot of hair salons now, by the way, that are posting videos and tips on how to keep your hair healthy while you're at home, right? And that's such a smart strategy. They're adapting to what's going on right now, and they're trying to put out content to make people remind that, hey, we're here. So when COVID ends, when the quarantine hopefully gets put down, you can come and see us. And we're knowledgeable because we're sharing these tips on social. So that's number one. In terms of publications and app directories, like I think the goal for any app normally should be to get put into like the top 100 or the top 50 or the hottest and newest apps. I think the way to do that really is by getting people to talk about it. So with however many users you have, it would be awesome if each one of them was to review your app and put up like a 5-star or 4-star review, because that will go a long way in getting people to see it. And I think what you should, go ahead, yep.
I haven't launched yet, so I just got honestly, it was like March 15 and Apple approved me, and boom, COVID hit. Yep. So I haven't, even though I'm on the App Store, I haven't officially launched. So I feel like maybe, is this a sweet spot? Maybe I can try to get my name out there before and then do like a launch when we all go back into society, hopefully.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Like if you could do a virtual event and you could invite out 3 influential stylists in Toronto or in Canada or even in the world. I mean, it's a virtual event. You can find people anywhere as long as they can, wake up or not go to bed. Like that would be great, and I think those events are exactly what a lot of app developers as it is do. They have like a launch event. And the launch event will bring out great speakers in their category. We'll invite an audience to all download the app and then rate it, because it doesn't take that many downloads and reviews to get into that hot 100 for your specific category in your specific area. So it could be neat doing a virtual event, invite a couple of really influential stylists in Toronto, Canada, the world, whatever it is, people that you think you can reach out to on Twitter or Instagram by DMing them and saying you're hosting this event. And try to put together a virtual event, invite 50, 60 people, get each one of them to review your app and leave a comment. And the cool thing about that too now is once you have those reviews, you can start screenshotting them and sharing that also as content and put some ad spend, whether it's 20 or 50 bucks behind a great review that someone left you about your app.
Right. Okay. Great.
So
Thank
this
you.
is just what I think will work. Again, you know, you could do this and then maybe like in 3 months it doesn't work. Like, don't be like, fuck Swish. Like,
Oh.
but like iterate, right? You know, if it doesn't work, I just genuinely feel like the number one thing to do, just really hit the pavement and reach out to your community, right? Like you're building an app that a lot of people I think care about. Beauty, fashion, again, is a very, very popular category, not only on Instagram, but in the world. So I think it shouldn't be hard to find people that are talking about it and give them the spotlight, whether it's sharing an interview about them, getting them on an Instagram live, or bringing them to a virtual event.
Okay, great. And I'm actually thinking about too, maybe if I could reach out to maybe like media writers to get published. I published like an article. Do you know anybody in that space?
Yeah, I can put you in touch with them after. Daily Hive is looking for great stories that come out of COVID right now. So if you are able to look into launching during the summer, that would be something really cool. Yeah. And they actually run a category called Venture Beat now. So it's Daily Hive and then it's called Venture Beat. And then the second one I would look at is Bay Street Bull in Toronto, or Beta Kit. You should reach out to Isabel or Megan at Beta Kit. They're very responsive over Twitter.
Okay, sorry, what was her name from Beta Kit? I'm just writing.
Megan. I don't know if it was Megan with 2 N's at the end or 1 N, but there was a Megan. And then it's Isabel.
And Isabel, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No worries.
And Linda, you can definitely share everything you're doing on through City Moguls. We have a Facebook group and we have a great community, so we can also chat as well. We'd love to.
And someone just put in the chat that they work with a few different magazines. Enjoy it.
You guys should connect, Andrea.
I love it.
Victoria's going to keep me in line in case I'm missing anyone, but I think Ben was up next. If you want to ask your question, Ben.
Hi, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well during this time. But and sorry about the random number on my Zoom. But my question is, my question today is, Swish, from your point of view, working at Trufan, seeing how brands and influencers are trying to differentiate themselves on social media and trying to engage more with their audience, there's a big trend right now of doing giveaways or various campaigns, such as different competitions and getting user-generated content. So how do you see that going forward into the future? And how do you see the companies that you work with trying to utilize that?
Sure. That's a great question. Thanks for that. I think the giveaways are interesting. I've actually done a few myself, not with Trufan, just in general in the past with a lot of basketball pages. I have a big passion for basketball, Swish. I noticed that giveaways are like a short-term Band-Aid. So like a lot of people do giveaways, people will follow you to get the gift, whatever it is, Michael Jordan signed ball, you know, LeBron James signed shoes, whatever it is, they'll follow you and then they'll like unfollow you in a week or two. It's a temporary Band-Aid, I think. You grow a little bit marginally, but it's not worth it. I think what's better is to do the following, is to run giveaways as a company or a brand with micro-influencers. So give them your product for free. Make them a lifelong customer. Like, for example, I will talk about this right now. There's this company called Lumen, which sent me a couple of awesome skincare products. I don't really use skincare products, but I was like, interesting. Talked to my mom about it. She was like, you should use skincare products. I was like, ouch, that hurts. I started using said skincare products and I love them. And I actually keep their bag on my table because I talk about them a lot now. They didn't pay me. I'm not doing an influencer campaign with them or anything like that, but they just sent me free stuff. Like they noticed that, hey, this is someone in Toronto that might like what we're doing and we'd love to ship them some stuff. And it's made me pretty much like a lifelong customer, something that I would never be a customer of. So that's, I think, a great way to do giveaways is if you do have free product to give away, if you have 5, 6, 7 extra bracelets, jerseys, hats, whatever it is, give those for free. Because I think a lot of times when people get free stuff, they love talking about it. again, playing to people's incentives. They love taking a quick Instagram story and telling people they got free stuff. And it's an easy way of going about marketing your product to their audience without doing a giveaway that I think is it's forced. It's not as organic at all.
And just continuing off of that, do you think that user-generated content is important for brands, and how do you see that playing a role, whether it's running some sort of competition to reward the best user-generated content, or how do you see that trending towards the future?
I think it depends on your category. I think in certain categories, user-generated content could work really well. Like if you were doing an app, I actually think user-generated content is always great, right? Being able to do a contest, like you're saying, reward the top person who posted the best photo of art, or like the best drawing or the best painting, and then feature that on your story, give them a reward. Everyone wins because everyone that shared their art piece brought up your brand in the caption, right? To get entered to the contest, or on their story, they talked about your brand. They did an @blank, or they did a hashtag. That's all consolidating information in one place. I think for certain industries, obviously user-generated content doesn't work too well. Finance, investment banking would be a little weird, I think, to do user-generated content. You know, I think if Wealthsimple did user-generated content, could work well, could also backfire. I don't know how comfortable people are talking about their finances in public. So I think that it depends, again, on your company and your brand. But if you do feel like, hey, I have a creative idea, and I do think people are going to share this because the reward that I'm giving them is really good, then think, like, is there another place you can put that reward instead of just giving it away and getting people to temporarily follow you for it? Is there another place you could go about putting that might be able to yield not conversion immediately, but can help your brand equity in terms of people knowing your brand and resonating with it?
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Ben. That was great. We're going to continue opening up the floor for a couple more questions. So if you have anything, please jump in. And I would love to try something new on this call because we do have some time. In the last 10 minutes, if you have to go at 1:20, that's totally fine. But in the last 10 minutes, we're going to do something we like to call speed networking. So we're going to put everyone into some breakout rooms, and you can chat with more people. I've never done this before, so I hope you can just bear with me.
You guys are our testers for breakout rooms. Here we go.
But yes, I am going to open up the floor for the next 5 minutes with any other last questions that anyone wants to throw out to Swish. I actually have one for you, Swish. Maybe this will spark something in someone else, but we're having such a conversation about being on social media and commenting and liking and talking and connecting and genuinely connecting, and it's exhausting. So I'm kind of interested to know, like, what is too much? Like, how much time should we be spending on social platforms? Like, what's the effect on also, like, you know, mental health? It's also like it's like amazing for your business and amazing for your personal brand. And then it's also like, how do you disconnect, right? And how do you how do you use it usefully?
Totally. So obviously mental health and social media are tied together in a lot of ways. I think that it comes down to two things. One is if you do something too much, you will harm yourself, right? So it's not just social media. I think that if you exercise way too much, you will physically get tired and you might even injure yourself. If you go through and you worry too much about your problems and regrets, you are not going to be able to focus on the present. If you do focus too much on social media, you might harm your mental health in terms of comparing yourself to other people. So the thing it comes down to is, how do you audit yourself? How do you audit yourself so that when you are coming onto social media for work, you don't get distracted? So does that mean maybe not following certain people that are distracting you, right? Like I do actually think there's a trend right now towards just like, all right, I'm only going to follow like 500, 1,000 people, whatever it is, that like genuinely provide me some level of comfort, entertainment, or value. They don't make me feel bad about my life. They don't make me feel terrible about what I'm doing. They're not telling me to do things. They're just there, you know, and they're helping me out, and they're a positive energy that makes me smile. So that's what some people do, because when they're on social media, then they're able to work a lot easier. They're able to focus on what they have to do. They do it, and then they get off. I don't think there's a time limit. Like I have a friend, Farouk, he manages an account at Good Life on Instagram. And Farouk, I think he was telling me that he spends in a week, probably about 100 hours on social media, 100 hours on Instagram and Twitter. And, you know, just hearing that burns my eyes, literally. I think I spend maybe like an hour a day or 2 hours a day. And I think that's a lot. He spends a lot of time a day on social media, but that's because his entire work is built on it, right? He runs this page, he's getting brand deals for it. He's building his own personal brand. He's trying to do a lot more speaking off it. Like that's his entire personal brand and livelihood that is based off social media. If your livelihood is not based on social media at all, I don't even think you have to be on it. Like all the tips that I just gave you might not even resonate with you if you think I can get to my customer and retain them without ever being on social media. And there are certain people that do that. Like there is a public company right now that we were chatting with, Lightspeed POS, their point of sale system to help brick and mortar stores with their point of sale system, right? They're Shopify, not for e-commerce, but for brick and mortar, for retailers, restaurants, people in hospitality. They have virtually no social media presence. They don't have a social media division. They don't care about social media right now. I think they will eventually, but right now they don't care about it. All they're focused on is the channels that their customers generally care about, which are publications that they're reading and in-person events or virtual events that they're attending so they can get their brand and their name out. So I think it comes down to auditing yourself, and it really comes down as much as possible to kind of figuring out, like, is my business contingent on this? If so, allocate the respectable amount of hours that you need. But
Thanks.
Keep checking in with yourself too.
Yeah, those are some great tips. Thank you for that. Andrea has a question. Andrea, I don't know if you want to take yourself off mute and ask this, or you wanted us to ask you for you, but I think you were right there, so I will let you ask it.
Okay, I can ask. You mentioned you had a lot of mentors in your life throughout your process, but have you ever sought out a business coach or a life coach?
That's a great question. So no. I think I'll eventually need a life coach. Right now, like my life coach is like my mom and my brother. Like I talk to them about everything. They're very honest with me, and that helps. My business coach, I think, are actually some of the closer investors or advisors that we have. So Michael Hyatt is someone I would put into that list. I talk to him honestly almost on a daily basis. Another person would be Bruce Croxton, who's an investor of ours. He's at Brand 13 Capital. He's someone I talk to on a daily basis, like every morning and every night. So these are people that act as like a business coach, if you will. And then we also did participate in some accelerators. So we were part of the DMZ program recently. And that obviously helped in terms of getting in front of a lot of entrepreneurs and residents who can give you advice on sales, marketing, HR in their own world and how they've gone about doing certain things. So haven't gotten a professional business coach, I guess, or a certified life coach yet, but I kind of have these people around me that facilitate that role. Yeah.
Thanks, Andrea, for your question. And I think there's just one last one from Bruce. I think we need some clarification on this because you wrote, how do you keep business/private life balance?
Yeah, my follow-up question is, how do you avoid burnout?
Great question.
Yeah. It's a good question, you know, and I actually think I'm the worst person to ask about this. Like, I just don't genuinely think I have a good work-life balance, but I think I actually do agree with a lot of people that kind of don't separate the two. Like, I find that given the fact that work, it makes up about 80% of our life, it's very, you know, I don't know. I don't know what the word is. I was thinking of like a word, but then I lost it. But I think it's not right to put the two separate, right? That's what I'm trying to say. I don't think it's right to say that my work is here and my life is work, because obviously there is going to be something that intersects together, right? Your life does continue while you're working. And when you're living your quote life, your work will continue, especially if
I call it blending.
Exactly. Blending. Perfect word.
Balance, blend. Yeah.
Exactly. But for me, like generally, you know, one thing that I do try to do is I do try to disconnect a little bit over the weekend. So my co-founder and I, we love playing video games. So, you know, honestly, over the weekends, we'll play NBA 2K or we'll play Call of Duty. Before quarantine hit, every Sunday I played basketball at the Ryerson Mattamy Center in part of a league. When I was in Vancouver, we were able to do things like hikes and walks. Obviously, you're not able to really, I mean, you're able to walk in Toronto, but you're not able to, you know, you don't enjoy the walk. You're not able to see beautiful oceans and mountains and stuff like that. But I think that's the one thing. But again, like, I don't think I'm someone that could really answer that. I don't think I have a good grasp on work-life balance yet.
Might be time for a coach.
Yeah, honestly,
I'll be in touch.
or just listening to my mom, because you know the amount of times she tells me to get a grip and like eat healthy. Oh my God, like I really got to listen to her. I feel.
Thanks, Swish.
Thanks, Bruce. And thank you so much, Swish. This was so incredible. We're gonna attempt to do these breakout rooms. If you all just get cut off, I apologize, and that's just, I guess, the beauty of technology right now. Victoria's just gonna wrap things up while I try and navigate my way here, if that's all right, Vic.
Yeah, so I know thank you again, Swish. This has been, I feel like we could keep going for 3 more hours. You're just bursting with so much knowledge. I have like 3 pages of notes.
Oh no, amazing.
Yeah,
appreciate you guys for having me.
It's great. Yeah, like Danny mentioned earlier, we have a webinar next Friday at 2:30 with the amazing Michelle Romano. It'll be real and raw, just like this, where you guys can ask candid conversations. We're all about just keeping it real here. And if you haven't heard yet about Mogul Cruise, we do weekly meetups with entrepreneurs from all different industries. Andrea is in my crew. I know Yaz and Natalie are also participating right now. It's just a great way to stay connected and keep accountable to things that you're up to every week. So Dan, you ready?
I think so.
Let's do it.
You might get put into a room with me or Swish or someone you don't know. So take the time to chat, connect, and maybe we'll try a couple rooms here. So I'm opening the rooms. Have fun. Oh wait, Yaz, you're only in one. You're in your own room. So I'm gonna. I'm gonna move you.
Poor Yaz.
Oh, this is really cool, you guys. I don't know if anyone's ever done this, but this is awesome. I'm gonna delete that room. Did you get moved? No, she didn't. Okay, let's try this one more time. Stand by, stand by.
Thanks for your patience, guys.
All right, I think this is great. I think this works. Go for it, have fun.
Awesome.
Bye guys. Thanks, Swish.
Thank you.
Amazing.
I knew I would get you or not. I knew that would happen.
How do you even do